Hey, today's Bible reading devotion is found in the book of Zechariah, chapter 9, verse 9. This is one of those passages that is a messianic passage. This is a passage about the Messiah that was to come. And for the Jews in the Old Testament, they were always looking for, always hoping for this Messiah that was going to come. Now, their Messiah that they truly were looking for, they were thinking was going to be this military leader, was going to be someone that was going to come and overthrow all the constraints on them, all of the just people who were beating them down. But unfortunately, they also didn't recognize that the Messiah wasn't going to necessarily free them from the bondage of the things of this world, but rather free them from the bondage of sin. And this verse, it talks about the daughter of Zion, the daughter of Jerusalem. Ultimately, that is saying Jerusalem's people, the inhabitants of people who live in Jerusalem, the people of God that God chose in the Old Testament to use, the Jews. And he was going to set them free. And he's talking about this king that was going to come. And that he was going to come and that he was going to bring them salvation. He was going to free them from their enemies and that their enemies would be destroyed. But again, the problem was they recognized this as an enemy of mankind as opposed to an enemy of mankind being a spiritual enemy. That the King Jesus was going to come and set them free from the bondage of sin, set them free from the slavery that Satan has put them in. And they didn't recognize that. But this is the promised king that was to come. Jesus himself that was going to come and that he was going to set them free. He was going to give them triumph. He was going to give them true salvation. It describes him very clearly. Humble and mounted on a donkey. I found just in studying this passage the interesting fact that David and his sons, as they were royalty, they would use a mule or they would use a donkey as they would come into places, which is interesting because a lot of royalty used this big horse that they would come in as they were pronouncing their entrance into a city. But yet David and his sons used a donkey. And just like them, the king that is promised here is going to come in on a donkey. And we see that evidence of when Jesus comes in to Jerusalem riding a donkey on what we call Palm Sunday, when all the people are there and they're shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna. And they are expecting this King, Jesus, to free them. As Jesus humbly comes in on this donkey. See, Jesus came not to establish an earthly kingdom. Jesus came to give peace to those who are in turmoil, those who are lost in their sin. That's why Jesus came. Jesus came, he humbled himself to the point of death on a cross. Because not even a week later, those same voices that were crying, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest, were shouting, crucify, crucify him. And that king that is promised here in Zechariah came. He came rejoicingly. He came and people shouted in triumph that the king finally came. But yet, a majority of them missed him. Missed why Jesus came. You know, I think there's a lot of people still in our world today who miss why Jesus came. Jesus did not come to give us things of this world. Jesus did not come to please us, but Jesus came so that we can find triumph in what he did on the cross and what he did victorious as he rose from the grave. And that we can find freedom from sin. We can find freedom from death. We can find freedom from the grave. And that we can live triumphant lives in him. Today, may we be reminded to live in the triumph of the King. Have a great day.